then the money is earned as soon as it comes into your hands. And you owe your client a will, but the money is earned. Now, I mentioned there are two kinds of trust accounts. The only one I've ever had to deal with is a pooled trust account, also known in most states, including probably IOLTA. IOLTA account stands for Interest on Lawyers Trust Account. What that is that's the account that you use to hold relatively small amounts of money for relatively short periods of time that belong to people other than you. The reason why it's called an IOLTA account is because in Minnesota and Iowa anyway, and probably Nebraska it's used for a similar purpose, the bank is required to offer you this interest-bearing checking account for your trust account. And the interest that is earned on that, once a month is they sweep through all the IOLTA accounts and they send a check to the state. So in my case, once a month the U.S. Bank duly sends a check to the state of Minnesota for 2 cents covering the interest that was earned on my IOLTA this month. And I don't think there's probably never been where I've had more than $1 in interest in my account. But maybe some, if they have a settlement in there for a little while or something. But the reasoning is well, this you have these small money is earning interest, and Minnesota, his money goes to the state, and Minnesota goes to an entity called the High Security Board, I think, and what they do is that they reimburse the victims of an honest attorney. So if an attorney has absconded some money, there's this pool of money come out of the IOLTA account used to compensate for them. And different states have different purposes. I think some states use the finance their pro bono activities. But this is what is known as a tax on our clients. Because it's money taken, because that money belongs to your client. 2 cents belongs to my client. They took that 2 cents, and so it's a tax. It's a small tax, but it is a tax. So first and foremost, what do lawyers do for their clients? Well, we want our clients to avoid taxes whenever possible. So that goes to the other type of trust account, and what that other type of trust account is if it's a large enough amount of money or an amount of money being held for a long enough period of time so that we're not dealing with just pennies. We're dealing with significant amounts of money. Well, in that situation, you have a duty to avoid that tax for your client, and you have a duty to put that in a separate account in that client's name, which that client is the official owner, so that client because it's their money being taken. Now, so this whole system runs rather smoothly in Minnesota and elsewhere, but the only reason it runs smoothly in Minnesota, and probably in other states, is because my bank does not charge a monthly service charge for these accounts. Because the rule authorizes is that the bank has to send this interest earned net of any service charge. Well, a bank can, certainly reasonable to charge a $20 a month service charge or $10 a month for a checking account if they wanted to. Well, then once a month goes through my account and say, okay, 12 in interest this month, minus the $20 service charge. How much it goes to the state? 0. And how much does Clemo in service charges? Well, $19 and change. So if the bank of the state wanted to shut down the High Security Board or whatever good odds that money goes to in some other state, they could easily do so, asserting their right to collect the service charge. But why don't they do that? Well, number one, because banks are nice people and they wouldn't do something so mean like trying to shut down this houses helping widows and orphans. But number two, because they make us the lawyers happy by doing that. Because that would be, it would turn into a nightmare if the banks didn't do that. Because this month I owe $19.32 for that service charge. Next month I owe $19.98 for that service charge. I can't just keep a $1,000 cushion in there it would be a lot of extra accounting work for all of us. So banks, to keep us happy, grudgingly go along with this IOLTA system. Now, if you walked into a bank and said, I'm a lawyer, I want to open a trust account, but I'm not going to do any other business with your bank, well, they would probably say no. They would probably send you away. But realize that we as attorneys need these kind of accounts, so they go along with it. But I guess I really realizes that it's just kind of the largesse of the banks that are going. Well, anyway, I'll get back off that little tangent and back to the rules. One thing to keep in mind, I think this might have changed since I was in law school, and just like this. As you probably heard, they're pretty strict on what records and documents you have to maintain for your account. And I'll tell you where those details in a little bit. But basically, you have to open that envelope every month. You have to look inside it. You have to reconcile and you have to reconcile the individual accounts and make sure they add up the total that's in there. You have to. You always have to do that. If you're not good at math, you have to do that. So do it. But one thing that's changed in the last few years, I think, is you're also required to keep a number of records with respect to your regular office account, your earnings. You can't just, throw away those statements without opening them. Now, that's not really a change because the IRS has always required you to keep records. But basically, the rule now says that you have to maintain your own business records for your office to the extent necessary, to the extent to keep track of, reasonably track your income. Now, one thing that's a little bit of an ambiguity, and so if this is your situation, I'm going to take a look at it. The way the rule was worded, it seems a little bit ambiguous to me, but it kind of seemed to imply that if you are practicing law, you have to have an office bank account, which seems reasonable, and if you're practicing law on a full-time basis, you probably do. But a lot of customers at these programs are maybe people who do not practice law on a full-time basis, but they're maintaining a license, and maybe occasionally do legal work for friends and relatives or whatever. Well, if that is your situation, be sure to take a close look at the rules, and especially the rule of the state you're located in, and make sure that it doesn't say that you have to have a separate account from your personal checking account. I think you're probably okay using your personal checking account for those kind of transactions, as long as you keep proper records. But you could read it to say, no, you need a separate account for that. So look at it carefully. The two ways to look, in addition to the rule, and another where I printed this blue and I got the secretary, but as far as these rules, the following link. The state of Iowa, or the Iowa Board of Lawyer Regulation, and the Minnesota Board, because these tax regulations tend to change a little bit from year to year on exactly what books and records you're required to keep, because they have a tendency to change. They're not actually written into the rules, but they have an annual kind of a guide that they put out that are incorporated into the rules section, so you're still required to follow them. And it explains in pretty great detail exactly what books and records you need to maintain. So it's a good idea to look over that publication for your state at least once a year, because they do change a little bit from time to time. And again, is available at the following link, and then there's no link. You can either do a Google search, or if you go to my webpage, richardklem.com, click on the link for this course, then click on the link for the course materials to get a copy of this where you will actually be able to read that thing, which is probably easier than type it anyway. Long, convoluted thing. So you should look originally, and I tell people in Minnesota to look at the Iowa version because the Iowa version actually is a little bit more user-friendly than most other states because it doesn't tell you just what is absolutely required. It kind of gives some pointers on what to watch out for, and gives some ideas on good accounting practices for your practice. And one of them, is kind of my favorite because this is one I've probably done a time or two so it's not actually a violation, but it's something that could come back to get you in trouble for being a nice guy. The warning about asking your client to wait till tomorrow to cash the settlement check. And I admit I've probably done it. You get settlement checks from insurance companies, and then the insurance company, that check's not going to bounce. They're good for it. Although there's always a chance, you'll pick up tomorrow's paper and this insurance company is insolvent. But normally, the check from the insurance company or the bank or whatever is probably going to be good. So the client comes in and they have to sign the back of the settlement check and there are other papers to sign. And he had to come from all the way across town, and he doesn't have to come back again tomorrow. So you just write him, you write him the check for the check, and you give it to him. And wait until tomorrow to cash it. Well, as long as he waits till tomorrow, that's great. But if he doesn't wait till tomorrow, he gets this check, now we cash it right away. Well, then you have to then you just vote an overtime in your truck account. Actually, maybe the best way to do that sometimes is, even if if you're not sure that if it's not an insurance company, if it's somebody, there might be some doubt, then you need to wait some time for it to clear. But otherwise, if you're close to the bank, I sometimes just walk over to the bank with my client, make the deposit, and then hand them the check right there on the spot. So that avoids that particular pitfall. Still tell them to wait till tomorrow. Okay, rule 1.6. Okay, so that's those are rules on client funds and so forth. Rule 1.16. So it's after close to 4 hours here, we still haven't finished rule 1. But declining or terminating representation. And our next code word for our webcast viewers is the word terminating. Terminating is the second code word for this hour of the program. And this rule talks about the situation where you are usually in action with taking a new case, or something that's an existing case. The times when you are either required or permitted to say, no, I do not want to take your case, go away for fire line. The situations where you are not permitted to take case, where you are required to decline it, are pretty narrow. Well, pretty broad. You've got to have some violation. So it's a conflict of interest. You can't take that case. You have a violation of some other part of the law. You are required to terminate the representation if your physical or mental condition impair your ability to carry it out. And you are required to terminate the representation if you are discharged. So in other words, if you're fired, you are fired, period. Even if the client made a breach of agreement. Maybe if you were wrongfully fired, maybe they bill you money, but you can't keep working for them if they say to stop working for them. Like that poor lawyer who filed notice of appeal. Well, no, the client said you're fired. And right or wrong, if you are fired, you are fired. Now, there are some exceptions to this that we will get to. So those are the situations where you must quit the case and take it in the first place. The situations where you may quit are almost because first of all, there's no material adverse effect. First, I don't want to do this guy, but you can find another lawyer. So that no adverse effect. Number two is another situation where you may withdraw. It doesn't just say here that you're required to, but some of those other rules may think you're required to. If your client persists in doing something with your services that you believe is criminal or fraudulent, then you may just withdraw from the case. Or if they're using your services to perpetrate a crime or a violation, or something that's just so repugnant to your values, you can withdraw. Number 5, I like how they word this. The client fails to substantially fulfill an obligation for their services, and sufficient warning has been given. In other words, your client stops paying. Yes, your client isn't paying you. You are not required to keep working for them, unless of these other exceptions down here. But you're not required to work for free most of the time. Or if it's just an unreasonable financial burden. You took on this case in good faith.